involved in the healthcare system since the day she was born. Correct, Lynn?
Correct.
Correct. So I want you to hear what she have. This is a real live person who's been involved in healthcare for a long time. I've asked her to come.
I'm here. Don't worry.
I've asked her to come and talk about healthcare, talk about her issues, what's happening with her health, and how it's affecting her, and in terms of also in social work. So I've asked her to speak about 10 or 15 minutes, and then feel free to ask any questions. She's really great at answering.
Yeah, I'm not shy, so don't worry.
Lynn is not shy. Okay, Lynn, your turn.
So how do you want me to start this off? Like, I don't know. So I was born with something called arthrogryposis multiplex congenital. It's more of an umbrella term. I know. Just call it AMC, and then I'll know what you're talking about. That's the acronym, AMC. I have another list of stuff, but that's what we'll be focusing on. It is mostly had to do with joints. Nothing with muscles. So, like, I remember looking it up one time, and it had to do with the way the legs look like kind of a goat. That's where they get it from. Like the whole arthrogryposis. With that guy from Narnia, I know what I'm talking about, the half goat guy. Like, it's kind of like that kind of thing. I don't know. Anyway, so I've been born with that, and my parents did not know that I'm gonna have it. It's not that you could detect during the pregnancy. So, and I was the firstborn. So it's just like, hey, there's something wrong here, and so yeah, that's how kind of I ended up like that. And it's nothing that can be passed down. So it's nothing like that my parents had to have or whatever. It's just like that one in a lifetime kind of thing. So so between the ages of like I've been born at 7, maybe. Between the ages of 1 and 5, I had at least 7 surgeries between that lifespan. And it stopped at the age of 5 once I was supposed to get a growth rod in my spine, which means like as I grow older, it'll adjust my spine and straighten it. But something, got complicated, and the metal thing, whatever that was made out of, got infected, and I got a staph infection, which is pretty serious. And I had to get it taken out, or luckily, if my mom did not detect my infection or that I was sick, I could have possibly died. It was that serious. But I had it taken out at the age of 5, which don't know how my mom did it, because I know around the age of 5, my brother was also born. So my mom had to deal with a bunch of stress. But yeah, so, and then pretty much after that, I didn't really get any kind of surgery or didn't do that, because my parents were pretty much like, okay, we're done. That's it. And so I kind of grew up with like the functioning of that, like, I'm going to adapt to the world, so the world adapting to me. And the key note too about that is that the ADA guidelines, which is Americans with Disabilities Act, they were released, I think. Bonnie, you might have to correct me on this one. Was it 1991 or 1992 that it came out? unmute yourself if you want to correct me. But I wasn't actually sure. I know it was like a year or two before I was born, but it didn't go into place until a little after I was born. So it was still like in its early development. So even though it was out, it wasn't like fully in the flesh, so to speak. So I had to grow up kind of like sort of just being like an everyday kid, quote unquote, but like with special things with them. So I did a whole like, you know, play with the neighborhood kids, once you'll find out probably in the speech, I'm not really that feminine, so I played like a guy, so to speak. Yeah, Bonnie's shaking her head. So even for my disability, I was pretty rough already. So
Len, one question. Somebody look up American Disabilities, ADA. Look it up and see when it's, because I have a totally different date than you said. So look up American with Disabilities Act.
I know it's around my birthday. That's all I remember.
Okay.
It says July 26th, 1990.
1990?
Okay, I knew it was somewhere on my birthday. Okay. I knew it was earlier, but I didn't know how early. All right, thank you. So, yeah, it was, so I had to go up with kind of like, you know, yeah, I had to walk her, but only for a little bit. And I have crutches still, but a lot of misconceptions about me is that I use the chair all the time, which I don't actually, not at all. It's only for long distance. So if you see me, hopefully, you know, with COVID, that could die down. You might see me buzzing around the campus in my power chair. That's only for really campus use or whatever. So that's like a lot of misconceptions. But anyway, healthcare. Go back to healthcare. Sorry. So I have a weird relationship with doctors and this medical field because I think I actually cried in class about this one time. But I feel like doctors are not that, to me, personal in a sense, because I always kind of been looked at as a number, you know? And so I always feel like weird in a hospital setting, and I didn't have a lot of good memories in hospitals. So even if I ever have to get like a checkup by like my pulmonologist or my heart doctor, for people who don't know, pulmonologists are just lung doctor. Sorry if I use terms that people don't know. I keep forgetting. So even if I'm just getting a checkup and there's nothing like wrong, I still get weird when you had to like check my vitals. And because I get like all hyperventilated and stuff like that. But and I found out later I have anxiety issues. Who knew? But
Len, did you ever work with any social workers when you're in the hospital?
No, I don't think so. The only kind of specialist I remember, or like dietary, you know, when I was able to eat solid foods and stuff like that. But I don't remember vividly any social workers. Even when I had pneumonia one time a couple of years ago, and I was in the hospital for a month. So I don't even remember that. Yeah. So yeah, no social workers.
I'm going to ask a question to the class. Why do you think a social worker should visit Lynn while she's in the hospital for a month, no matter how old she was?
I feel like long-term stay in an unfamiliar setting like the hospital, and like obviously from what I'm hearing it sounds like it was pretty traumatic for you. Like there should have been someone there to support you through that because you were living a very like abnormal life at that time and you needed probably some more support.
Yeah, it was definitely traumatic.
Lynn,
did
why
al-
did you ask for a social worker?
So at that time, I was still good at community and I was still figuring out my way. And I still refer to myself as a psychology student. So I didn't know too much about the social work avenue that, oh yeah, social workers can go in hospitals. So at that time, I didn't know.
I think still this time, I think the only times any clients or patients see social workers is if somebody in the hospital recommends, like the doctor or the nurse or the dietitian asks for it. Most patients who go into hospitals don't know to ask for a social worker. And Lynn's a perfectly good example that she wasn't aware that even exists, even though every solitary hospital has social workers.
Yeah, the only type of support, I mean, other than my family, was like one nurse that I vividly remember. He was a night shift nurse though, but he was just really chill, and I whenever he would like sneak in an ice cream for me every now and then when I was supposed to eat. But like, he was just a really cool guy, and I remember that we both like superhero stuff. So that I saw his pin that had the Flash logo, and we talked about that. So that was the only, I guess, social work experience I had. You know what I mean? In terms
Now
of
that you've taken all the courses, how do you think a social worker could have helped you?
it could have definitely helped me with the trauma experience and the fact that like I was also guilt tripping myself because I was like, oh, I should have saw this sooner. Oh, you know, and then now, and I also say this story because it does have to do with what you asked me. I remember that I had to get, so I went to a community hospital first, and I spent maybe 2.5 weeks there because, but they end up like not really having the resources to take care of, you know, my specific needs. Nothing was changing. So I end up, this is when I still lived in Illinois, by the way, just context. Yeah. So I had to be transferred out to, before I got transferred out to a hospital in Chicago, that was way more resources. It was also a university hospital. I remember having this weird, like, and it's not going to be like a spiritual thing. It's just like the way it looked. But I had like a near-death experience. It was so weird. And it's like I knew what was happening. Where I was lying in the bed and I just couldn't talk or anything. And then like, you know, the thing was beeping, and I swear I feel like I saw like fog coming up or like smoke, but I just, you know, obviously years later I realized that was just, you know, my brain processing, you know, something was happening. But yeah, it's like I went over the nurse flashing the light in my eye and yelling my name. Even though I wanted to answer back, I heard her. I just couldn't, and it was just so. That was also very traumatizing, and I still talk about that experience to this day. It's probably the only like near-death experience I could vividly talk about. So then after that whole thing, by the way, my grandma, you know, at that time when she was so alive, she was in that room, and she's such a spaz, and oh my god. I feel so bad for her. Because that's when the first time my mom took a break to go home and she was there like 24/7 with me. My mom was like glue. But the first time that she's like, yeah, I need to go and, get clothes, blah, blah. And that's when my grandma came in, and who knew that was going to happen when my mom was away. So I always found that was a little, not funny, but like ironic. So yeah, I got transferred, and yeah, so I think the social work thing gonna help me process through a lot of my emotional turmoil, I guess, for sure. Because I still went on some of this to this day, and I never.
Why did you go into social work, Lynn?
Well, I realized, even when I went to psychology, at that time, my goal never changed. I still wanted to help people. I just didn't know that social work had this more avenues than psychology, and I just felt like I could do more of my mission quicker than psychology. And just the fact that, like, personally, I feel like I get more hands-on experience. So, yeah, that's why I like social work. I just have that good feeling that I know I'm helping out to the best of my ability, of course. Yeah.
Right. So what are some of the things that people come up or talk to you about or express that you would like to say to the class about being in a chair and being very small and put up your hand again. Does anybody
Yes.
comment about your hand?
No, just that, well, yeah, I do really. No one really talks about my hands. Which is funny. Other than that, they're double jointed.
Yeah.
And I could balance spoons on them and stuff. So it's more of a party trick.
But it's not like my hand, obviously.
No. Like I could bend my fingers backwards. I'm not going to show you guys. Some people get sick with that. But yeah, well, they had to work on my hands when I was like really young because a lot of what arthrogryposis, you're like clenched like this. So I was one of the fortunate cases where they were able to, and I don't have a lot of webbing. A lot of them can have webbing, and I actually know somebody personally who has it too, who works at U of M for research. She's a graduate there, but and social work ironically too. So I guess birds of a flock together. But anyway, but yeah, it's just cases vary. There's some that don't have a bad spine like I do. You can't see it, but so it just, again, cases vary. Kind of like with the autism spectrum, that there's just various levels of functioning, so, like one case is not always the same.
Does anybody have any questions? That
I have a question.
Okay.
What was your disability again? For if you don't mind me asking.
you
Hello.
want to put it in chat, Glenn?
Yeah. I'll just put the acronym because it's just a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
There, it's in chat. Like it's a mouthful. If you ever, and no, it's not the movie theater.
Oh, yeah, it's true. Although we don't have any movie theaters in Michigan, but yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Does anybody have any other questions? Anybody feel comfortable to ask?
Can I ask, like, what do you want to do in the social work field?
Well, I wanna work with inmates. Which my dad's like, "Are you sure you still want to do that?" I was like, "Yeah, man, I still want to do it." But yeah, I want to work with inmates. I want to do resources, a lot to help them in prison and out of prison. So,
Yep.
yeah. Currently, I'm in the youth justice fund for my internship, and that helps with individuals who were originally in prison at juveniles, but like we're in the adult system, and then but we work with them when they're finally out when you get no resources. So we had to also deal with like a lot of generational gaps, you know, because these are, I think, people who did more than 20 years, if I'm correct, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's
Right.
what I want to do. Ironically, it has nothing to do with disability, but I mean, actually, one of my clients did have one. So, I mean, so you do come around various types of people. So, I can't hold my tongue on that. So,
Right. Lynn is about to get married.
oh yeah. There you go. I know a lot of you want to see it. They always ask, but yeah, I'm gonna get married next year. Hopefully, you know, COVID doesn't push it back. My mom's already driving me crazy about that. So,
And Lynn, you have sibling that does not have AMC, correct?
no, like I said, it's not a family and like hereditary thing. So, like my parents don't have it. Nope, I'm the only one that has it. Like throughout the whole, even extended family, like nobody has it but me.
And
No,
if you have a child, the child very likely will not get it,
No, they won't.
right?
Unlikely, especially since my significant other doesn't have anything either. So luckily,
I just want to say we have just time for one more because we have so many other things to do. And so,
yeah, sorry.
anybody have any other questions, thoughts, anything? If you see Lynn on campus, would you feel comfortable? And you could just give me, you don't have to say anything. You can just say, give me a reaction. Would you feel comfortable be honest? Would you feel comfortable going up and say, hey, Lynn, hi, Lynn, you in my class or anything?
All right.
A lot of people are very uncomfortable approaching somebody in a wheelchair.
I think just there's a lot of misconceptions that people who are in wheelchairs also have like a mental disability too, and that is like they're also afraid to be offensive, which I think just kind of staring and like being distant is probably more offensive than approaching and just straight up asking. Like that's also what the whole like little child thing and the mother or whatever. It's like just let the little kid ask. They're little kids, they're curious, they don't know any better. I'd rather than you teach your little kids that like, you know, like I remember I explained one time to a little kid that my wheelchair, which is like a little mini car, and he just like got that instantly, like just like okay, like it was just that easy, you know what I mean? I think we don't give little kids enough credit, especially since they have like better imagination than us, that they're just able to make certain connections probably better than we can.
Yeah. And I think people are very concerned that they come up and talk to you and ask maybe, especially if you remember Eastern's, anybody actually remember being on Eastern's campus in the winter, especially for those of you who've been on campus other than Lynn and I for a while. In the winter, in the ice storms, the hills are horrible, especially certain hills are worse than others. And so I wonder how many people are just want to help you, Lynn, even though you can do better than I can do at walking, but they're too embarrassed. They don't know what to say to you, so they might even go the other way just because they don't know what to say to somebody who's in a wheelchair.
I don't see it a lot at the university setting, to be quite honest. Like, and I think it's also because I'm just more local. I'll be just like, hey, can you open that door for me? And be like, okay. And I think it's just, I guess it's just an individual thing. It's just my personality to be more loud and obnoxious. So,
Yeah, well, yeah,
yeah.
never
So you
mind.
do agree, Bonnie. Okay, I get it.
All right, I just want to thank Lynn very much for coming. She has to go back to her schoolwork and her job and all that, but I really want to thank you. So Lynn is going to be on the exam. There'll be a couple questions on the exam. Does anybody have anything they want Lynn to chat about?
I just had one more question. How
Okay.
since you're working with like inmates and stuff like that, how does your disability affect you in like your career?
Actually, for me, so I had a specific client who had MS, which is multiple sclerosis, and it'll be very debilitating, unlike mine, that I could be more mobile than him, and I'm not wheelchair bound like this guy. So, it helped me connect and be like, hey, you know, I can emphasize and understand how you feel, and I don't know how he particularly got it. I've been told he got it in prison, but you know, I'm not a doctor. I go to school to be a doctor, so right now I would say it's helping more than it's hurting, because I could be viewed as a more empathetic individual and just be like, yeah, I also face hardships too, but if I could triumph, so can you, kind of thing.
Right, and I think right now, most of our internships are Zoom, so it doesn't make any difference that Lynn is in
Yeah.
a chair or not in a chair. But if we were at a time where we weren't Zooming, she would be going into a social service agency just like you and I would be going into a social. We just have to make sure that the agency has a ramp so that it's she can get in. But you know, one other thing we didn't talk about that I really want to talk about is that people are saying you have a disability. What word would you rather use, Lynn, than a disability?
Well, I know the part is saying persons with disability. If you want to say that, that's the preferred. And like you would say, instead of saying, my son is autistic, you would say, my son has autism. You will always put the person before the disability. So if you have to talk about the specific disability, just kind of phrase it that way. Like
Right.
you wouldn't say I'm physically disabled. I would say I have a disability. See, like I said, I'm different. I'm just like go with the flow for the most part. I'll tell you if I'm offended. I usually don't.
And I think in social work, we are saying more that people are differently able, that she's just as able as everybody else. She's just differently.
Yeah, that's usually now. And I also heard from a person that I got my drugs from. She called it handy capable, which I haven't heard that term in a while, but I kind of like it. Handy capable.
I know you're going to just say, anyway, we got to go.
Yeah, okay.
I will see you. Thank you, Lynn, very, very much.
No problem. And
Bye.
remember, don't worry about asking questions like just at all. If you don't know somebody, just always be curious. All right, bye.
Bye. Okay, we're going to go on to chapter 7, and then I got to give